Okay, good afternoon. I think any time when you attend the conference, everybody understands technical difficulty in the beginning of the session. And particularly when you have a great sponsor for this event and you pay funds the money for this event, I just want to make sure every microphone you pay should work properly. And my name is Jun Kim, the professor and program director for Grade D Landscape Architecture program in the Michigan State University. This is only one program can celebrate 125th anniversary. We call it LAnniversary. The good news is when I organized 120th anniversary, we named the brand as LAnniversary because we are LA. And I got 7 emails from alumni. Hey, dude, you made a typo. But this time, I didn't get any single email about the typo. So everybody been very well educated, and that's why we have deserving to celebrate the 125th anniversary without no hiccup. So again, I introduced many times, so I don't want to take longer time to introduce about the program because our first panel session, exciting one, with great panelists. And also I asked our student club leaders to facilitate this program. Why? Because I'm saying this event is not only for celebrating our history, legacy, and then the energy and the contribution, but also I want to use this event as part of the student enrichment activities to nurture their leadership. So for the first panel, I want to introduce Nick Antoni, our ASLA Club student president, and Corinne Brings, our ASLA Club student vice president.
Hello and welcome to our first panelist session, the past, present, and future of the LA discipline. To kick off this discussion, I'd like to start with introductions. We'd love if you can introduce yourselves and how you got to where you are today. And being that everyone is an alumni, we were wondering if we could hear a favorite memory of yours that encapsulates your time here at MSU.
Set the bar, Laurel.
Hello, I'm Laurel Harrington, and I am currently at an engineering firm. I call that infiltrating engineering with landscape architecture. And so that's as of just a year ago. So I'm class of 1991. And I've been involved in a lot of different parts of the discipline, or lots of disciplines in landscape architecture. So that's been a great career that I was able to launch from Michigan State. My favorite memory is breaking into the urban planning landscape architecture building because those new security people just never knew that it was ours to use at any time, day or night. So yeah, we had to teach a few along the way, but that was fun.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brandon List. I lead the landscape architecture and planning group at Tower Pinkster in Grand Rapids. We also have an office in Kalamazoo. I've practiced in Detroit and Ann Arbor and Chicago. And I think my fondest memory from the program, he's not here today, so I can talk about him, but I moved into Shaw Hall and I realized that Jason Rokas was my neighbor and he was also in the landscape architecture program. And I was unexcited about him being my neighbor because we did not get along. And then we became fast friends and we are best friends to this day. So that enduring relationship from being at Michigan State and being in the program sticks with me to this day.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Fennick. I am with the Hitchcock Design Group. Usually, I think most of you probably know they're a Midwest firm, but we just recently opened an office in Coral Springs, Florida. And so I'm leading that office down there. I graduated in 2011 and have worked primarily in Florida, the Southeastern Caribbean for most of my career. I think probably the favorite memory other than study abroad, obviously. So those of you that are new to the Human Ecology building, We actually, our senior year, we laid a challenge to the fourth years in a game of studio mini hoops basketball. You know, the backboard basketball hoops that you put on like your closet door. Unbeknownst to the faculty, the staff, the janitors, and everybody, we actually cleared all of the furniture out of the middle studio. Painted scotch or masking tape lines on the floor, had starting lineup anthems, bought jerseys, the whole thing. And I'm happy to announce that our team absolutely smashed the 4 years.
My name is Joshua Seifert. I'm a board member and senior associate at GGN. Before that, spent the last 8 years or so at field operations in New York, and I've noticed nothing in the middle. It's either one coast or the other for me. Favorite memory, I was trying to figure out what the statute of limitations are on some of these things. But a lasting sort of bond, I would say, is I remember a moment very clearly in Paul Noraco's drawing class where we were all rendering the same printed out image. And I thought I did a freaking really good job. Paul apparently did not think so by the grade, and I remember slamming down on the table in front of him, being like, "Try again!" And I walked out of the class, and we've been like friends ever since. And I love seeing Paul every time I do get back there.
Hi, I'm Vicki McGee. I started out my career working for Jacobs Ryan in Chicago. I was there for about 7 years. Then I came back to work for Bob Ford for a short stint. And then ever since then, I've been working for the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, Parks and Recreation Division. And basically am working with a great team of people who are developing and refurbishing our state parks and all of our public boating facilities. So it's been a very rewarding job. Gosh, I can't think of anything in particular that was really funny. Just, you know, we had a tight group and really very social. So even when we weren't working on a project, we were also socializing. And I can remember we were pretty sad about, you know, really ending. I mean, you're happy and you're not happy. And so we kind of threw like a senior prom in the union, and it was formal dress and birthday party, great time. So you know, it was just a nice way that we all thought we should send ourselves off after, you know, graduation. So, and I'm also serving with Josh and others on the board. Hello, we only have till 3:45.
Yeah.
We started. There's some wiggle. We started.
My name's Joyce Weiss, class of 85. I ended up in landscape architecture. I was walking across, I lived in Wilson, and I was headed to one of those classes like ATL or whatever. And I saw the urban planning landscape architecture building, and I went, what is that? And I was in engineering, I think mechanical, and I was like, this is doing it for me. So I stopped in, I went into the office, and Dr. Hodges was there, and he gave me a tour of the landscape architecture building. And I went home and I told my mom and dad I wanted to be a landscape architect. And my dad said, why do you want to prune hedges for? I said, Dad, I don't want to prune hedges. I want to design parks and just be, you know, impactful. But anyway, I love the program. I think it was I thought it was a very difficult program. I remember one of my classmates' husbands was in medical school and did not have as much work as we did. And when he told us that, I was like depressed. I had two, I mean, Labash, that's all I'm gonna say. Labash was a fun time. And then there's one other incident, I think it was junior year.
It's a great way to start.
The junior year's, wow. And so I think it was a Tony Bauer class, but anyway, I was living off campus and I had to bring a project in on foam core. And it was winter and we just had a storm. And I got to the bridge that goes across the river there at the library, and a gust of wind came up. And I sailed with my foam core, and I held on for dear life because I think I spent 40 hours on it. And I went across the bridge and got to the other side and went, okay. I made it that far. I'm good. These are the things I dream about now. I have nightmares. I work for myself. I have Designscapes, which I bought from, Dave Stebbins and his wife Nancy, Nancy was in my class and Dave was a year ahead, but I started out working for landscape contractors, which was an excellent experience for me. So I learned construction, and I think as landscape architects, we really need to understand how these designs we put together are built and what impact they have and how equipment gets into where we're trying to build these things. And so that was huge. I'm not saying you have to work for a landscape contractor if you're a student, but do an internship. Is much experience. I had an internship with Bob Ford, and I work with civil engineers now, and it's like it was meant to be. I understand civils because of training I got from Bob. So anyway. Thank you all. I feel inspired.
Oh, is it gonna go back to school?
I think there's 2 live mics.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so clearly we have a lot of unique stories here, and you all are encompassing a huge amount of what I think it can mean to be a landscape architect. So the question is, what does landscape architecture mean to you? And I think Joyce, you touched on a little bit. It's not just pruning hedges.
It's not just pruning hedges,
right?
One second.
This mic's not hot.
No, but just landscape architecture to me is, there's a sign, I think it was in the middle studio that said placemaking since 1898. And that term placemaking has kind of worked its way into my narrative as I've spoken and interviewed for jobs and talked to people about what our profession is. That's what it is to me. I think it's one of the coolest and most rewarding things that we get to do as landscape architects is design stuff and then go watch people make memories there. And I've got several examples of that, and in the essence of time, I won't really get into it, but that's what it means to me. It's an opportunity to, everything in the outside world, outside of that everybody experiences, we have our finger on. And I think that's really cool.
To me, landscape architecture means stewardship. So I think kind of in 3 lenses. One is being a steward for our clients. So like you were saying, creating spaces, very often we're designing for people that don't understand the physical environment as well as we do. So we're stewards for creating excellent, beautiful spaces that function and create memories. We're a steward for the environment, right? So that may not mean restoration or conservation, but saving a tree or making sure that the designs that we have are responsible in some way. And then also, and maybe a little bit more of a defensive way, is taking it to architects. And being a steward for landscape architecture, because often we're considered the shrub it up folks. And so very often my job is saying, actually, no, we're much more than that. And sometimes there's a nice way of doing that. And then sometimes you have to be forceful. So it's a balance there, but I think those 3 lenses of stewardship are what landscape architecture means to me.
I love both of those because that is really the result of our efforts, and I consider us really the glue and the bridge. And how we really bring the team together and find all those gaps that everybody's kind of looking in isolation in their little silo about the engineering aspects, the architecture aspects. And I just love to get really nosy and start digging into all that stuff, marking their drawings and really becoming that that discipline that helps find all the things that are in the gaps and find how you glue it all together. And I think we have a lot of leadership in that. And so, kind of this being in an engineering firm now as an architecture firm before, both having, starting a landscape architecture group out of nothing. That's what I'm currently doing for Lockmuller. And, it's just, you get to really, kind of get in there and get nosy and start to pull it all together and start to dig into everybody else's business. And so not staying in your lane, I think is what I would say to any, emerging professional is is just get nosy, get busy, and, you know, get tech, you know, know enough to be dangerous on just about everything each other.
Yeah, Brandon said responsibility, and I think for me, landscape architecture means having a greater deal of responsibility than you could ever imagine, because oftentimes you think you're designing for a certain end use, but the reality is we're designing for people we've never seen, we've never met, for generations to come. It's just what we do and what gets physically built is such a small drop in the impact of how anybody may or may not use and experience space and the memories that space makes for people. And it's not something to take lightly.
I also think that, you know, we have a great opportunity to help people have both mental and physical health. And that's becoming more and more understood. You know, we've heard of forest bathing perhaps. And so, but that's a real thing, you know, and we help people make that connection with their environment. And then there's also that balance between, you know, not loving the environment to death. So in my industry and, you know, public recreation, you know, we have a lot of people that want to be on the trails or on hikes or, you know, things like that. And so how do you help that balance so that people still get to enjoy that outdoor setting, but also have that sustainable kind of experience for a long, long time? So, and I also like that we aren't just dealing with the outdoor environment. We are architects because we do influence what the built environment looks like. We are interior designers because we're looking at accessibility, right? And indoors and out. And then civil engineers, you know, and I was joking with Stephanie about this yesterday, but you know, any of my engineer friends, I used to joke with saying, okay, if you build a retention pond, it's going to be square, right? You know, whereas a landscape architect knows how to make it, you know, soften the edges and build it into the environment. So it has a function, but it also has, you know, a place that makes it a pleasant, you know, place to be.
You still want me to go?
Don't worry about the time, you're good.
One benefit of being self-employed is I get to do a lot of different projects because I have a lot of different customers I work with, and I love the parks. I think if you talk about where landscape architecture is headed and what it means to me, I think our influence on the built environment, even the buildings themselves, but nothing is going to make any sense until the landscaping is complete. Unfortunately, a lot of times the money comes out of the landscaping because architects spend too much money, but anyway, I think communication is huge. I don't know that you have to have a job in landscape architecture and actually be drawing. I mean, I love to draw and I love to create, but there's a lot of communication that happens in landscape architecture and explaining why the environment and the climate and trees, why are trees so important? If I saw a landscape that was just all trees, I'd be fine with that. Nothing against perennials and shrubs, love them too, but trees are amazing and what they do for us. So, I mean, love parks, but anyway.
Thank you. And now that we know what landscape architecture means to you, let's shift our focus to how you observe the field evolve during your careers, how you see it changing in the future, and what areas of opportunity do you see?
You want me to start and go that way? I think being prepared to change. I think you have to kind of go with the flow, and I think we all are like that anyway. That's what I love about landscape architects and meeting with landscape architects. We're not so rigid. I do like to be organized, but I think being able to go with the flow and just being able to deal with technology change. I think the AI thing is going to be something that we're going to need to control a little. So it kind of scares me a little bit because I think humans' ideas are maybe better than machines, but just having an open mind and being ready for the change. And a lot of the projects I've been working on lately, dealing with local government zoning boards or zoning, going through planning commission, and every project that we do does that. And it seems like native plants and sustainability and lower use of chemical and water and just better decisions on plant material, not forcing a plant to live in a place that shouldn't be living. And it's kind of hard. Sometimes they're not as pretty. So I think that's going to be a big deal and we need to pay attention to that.
I was thinking about this, I think it was in the springtime, there was just this giant bloom of Russian olives everywhere. And that was actually an ornamental plant when I was going through my classes, you know? And so I do think the invasive species is, a big change where we're trying to be more cognizant of what we choose and its sustainability. And I think on the funny side, seeing the evolution of materials. So when I was a student, it was yellow trace paper. And seeing the technology tools that people are using now it just helps really illustrate and communicate, as you had said, it helps communicate the ideas, sometimes for clients who really, have a hard time visualizing it. So I think that's what I would.
Well, do I need to say, so I feel like I'm being set up, I've not, been in the field. I graduated much more recently than, my timeline of point of reference, maybe a little different. I'm scooting over this.
You're doing great, Ryan.
I think one of the biggest observations, for me, since I've been practicing it, is the presence of landscape architects at the table of very large, complex, billion-dollar, city shaping developments, and being able to have a voice in the shaping and composition of these things, and not just being looked at to sort of fill in the spaces. And have your opinion taken sort of, seriously and with, a sense of purpose. So I'll end there before I say something.
That's good.
Vicky, oh God.
One more thing. So one thing I think is really amazing is that we're licensed in Michigan, and that evolution happened, like in my career. And there are some people here that I know were influential in getting that license.
Yes.
That was big, so I will say, protect it.
So I'm pretty passionate about this question, and I feel like there could be an hour of just me talking. So I'm gonna try to rein it in. I disagree with Josh a little bit in that, I think a lot has changed in the last 12 years since I graduated.
Now it's getting.
I think, where to begin, it's the changes and some of the things are so broad. Our profession is so broad. When you look at the scale, the micro scale at which landscape architects work and the macro scale at which landscape architects work, to talk about the evolution of how things have changed in the last 12 years, it's a whole conversation in of itself. But with all that being said, I look at awareness. I'm gonna focus more on probably the practical side of it. I will put a little plug in here for ASLA. It is the only organization that defends our licensure, period. And so I was talking to, I won't call them out, but someone earlier, I'm benefiting from the opportunity to see how the sausage is made a little bit at National. And it's really amazing how our profession is continuing to evolve and grow. And I would even challenge, sorry to pick on you, Josh, even challenge your comment about being at the table. I think we're leading the conversations a lot more than we were 10 years ago on a lot of really complex projects. I see it continuing to change. I look at software developments like SketchUp, Revit, all of the things that I remember Kevin in our class, he was like, hey, look at this new software tool called SketchUp. It's kind of cool. And we were all mind blown. And now look at the amazing renderings and stuff that landscape architects are putting out. A lot of opportunities for continued growth. It takes all of us. I would encourage all of you, get involved in local boards in your community, get involved with ASLA, get involved with things that aren't even landscape architecture related. and talk about landscape architecture. Be proud of what you do, celebrate what you do, and that is going to continue to raise the awareness of what we are trying to do as a profession. The final thing is, how do I see it changing in the future? I think our profession is going to be dominated by women in 10 years. If you look at our education programs, you look at the firms, all of the young professionals and stuff, and it's awesome, and it's really cool, and I'm super excited to see that transformation happen over the next, several years. So I could go on and on, but I'm gonna pass it on again. Interested with that.
Yeah, the comment about licensure, I think is really important, because I see some folks in this room that practice in Illinois, and well, they lost licensure, and so that's a big deal. So I think it's back, but anyway. That's not a good trend for our profession. But getting back to the question at hand, in terms of things that have changed, I guess the overall theme, maybe one good and one bad part of is speed. So the speed at which our profession works. And so in a bad way, I think our schedules are tightened. The expectations that we have are continually, everyone here has had a schedule that is tightened and the expectations don't change. So I recently documented and put a project out to bid in 4 days. And so I designed it in 1 day, strong-armed an architectural intern to document it for 2 days, and it was out to bid the next day. So that, nothing could go wrong in construction, right? So that's kind of the negative end, right? Where I think we need to push back and advocate for the time to be thoughtful and do our work right. But on the other side is those tools that other people have mentioned that have developed since we started our careers have helped us be able to iterate, visualize, tell the story to our clients. So I think that's really, really impactful and really positive, because like you were saying, SketchUp was sort of nascent when we started, and now you can plug it into Enscape and you've got a rendering that's almost photorealistic immediately. That wasn't the way it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So that's a tool that we can use, and it's really, really impactful and positive.
I would add that really we're at a renaissance for opportunity right now because of really a lot of things that have changed with climate change and various environmental regulations and laws. So before it was really business as usual, and we didn't have, clients really demanding something else. And many of us experimented and did things for the right reasons, but there wasn't that backup that you need, that either I have to or we want to because we've got money to spend on it. And now we've got a lot of those things that kind of say, oh shoot, we've got to do good stormwater mitigation here. We've got opportunities to bring more of this into our projects because it's being demanded of us, or we have the support to do it. And so I think this is just the best time to experiment, to be leaders and bringing new ways of doing things into this, because there's just a lot of this is an experiment. And because we are in the exterior environment, it's always moving and changing, and we can only model it so far. It's gonna always be growing and changing. So I'm excited about that. I think a lot of programs like Site and LEAD have helped us in that manner, but being able to show that we're doing something for 3 or 4 reasons allows that stuff to stay in the project. So we've just got a lot more to work with to keep those things in the project and not have them be because, oh shoot, we don't have any money. So it's just a really great time to be a landscape architect. So I'm excited for you guys to do that.
And on that note, we have time for one more question. So to conclude, I think I'm asking in the interest of myself and a lot of the other young professionals out here, but we'd love to know what advice you can offer to people up and coming, and some of your reflections on that time in your career and going forward.
I think I benefited starting out in a smallish firm. I think, I became a project manager really early. Kind of like all hands on deck, Laurel, you do it. Oh, okay. And so I think there's some benefit, to that, not to say that, you can't get some of those opportunities elsewhere, but I wouldn't discount, regional and kind of, mid-sized small firms with having a lot of opportunity to grow and learn and build on that, with your career continuing on. So I wouldn't shy away from that. And then just what I said earlier is just, get into the technical aspects of everything and know stuff about the other disciplines that you're working with, and be nosy and engaged, and don't let anybody tell you that's not your thing to be looking at. Look at it, redline it, be involved in it, and have those conversations with all our great discipline friends, engineers and architects, and then you just gain power from that.
You'll get great advice, as emerging professionals from the rest of the panel. I guess I would advocate to, take care of yourselves. Make sure that you're taking care of your mental health, your physical health. Make sure that you've got your financial house in order, and your profession will figure itself out. But if those things are ignored, then your professional life doesn't matter. So I would say, really invest in some of that. You may not learn that in your coursework, but it's really important as human beings to take care of those things.
Yeah, I'd say, in life and in work in particular, you're gonna get as much as you put into it. And that's in anything that you do. I graduated, in 2011 at the tail end of the recession. Well, I want to start with one thing. Because I think it's really important. So back when I was in school, it was very competitive. Not that it's not competitive now, but we had, I believe, 56, 57 people trying to get in for 26 spots. And I was number 27. And I had a decision to make. Did I want to switch to horticulture, or did I want to stick with it and go at it again? And I know there's a couple other people who remember my situation. That was the first adversity in my career. And it was the best thing that ever happened. I think it set this trajectory for my friend groups, my career, which have had a very blessed career. But and then I graduated in 2011. There were no jobs. I did a postgraduate internship, and 9 months later, they said, "Sorry, we can't hire you because of the economy." So adversity number two, again, set the trajectory moving forward. So there's going to be times where you may think you're failing, and I would just encourage you to use that as an opportunity to take the next step in whatever direction that is. And again, just put as much into it. Be curious. Always ask questions. Lean into those around you. Lean into those of your peers that are growing with you, and find a support system of people that are aligned with your values. So that's my 2 cents.
So, there's 2 things. I always think about where I come from, my background. I grew up on a farm on the north side of Lansing, and the idea of college was not even really a thought. Landscape architecture surely wasn't a thought. The idea of moving to Washington in 2009, thinking Seattle was everything, had no idea what I was getting into, moving to Philadelphia and then on to New York. These are all things, had you told a high school me, I would have said, you're out of your freaking mind. But the point of that is I always had a curiosity. And I tell this to whether it's students I'm visiting in class or younger staff, is you have to be curious if you want to grow in the profession. And with that curiosity, there's so much more you'll ever learn outside of these walls. But you have to want to learn it. You have to want to find, explore, and study, and test, and fail, and spend more than 40 hours a week in the office doing this, extra time, drawing, sketching. But if you're curious and you want it bad enough, you can go places that you never would imagine.
So I'm sure any of the other professionals who are in this room have probably been at a public meeting where you felt attacked. And so I would say one of the things grow a really stiff spine sometimes, but try and grow from whatever those adversaries might be saying to you. They're passionate. And a word of advice that I got from a mentor many years ago was, try and find the common ground. And so it might not be like right there in the public meeting, but, working on it so that you can establish something so that you can develop a relationship and then work out whatever the issue is or the problem is. And oftentimes it can be excruciating, but it can be fruitful. And then kind of along the same lines, I do like the cultural diversity that I'm seeing growing in the program. It's wonderful. You mentioned more women, but it's just more different faces, throughout. And I think we all like to see people who, we can relate to, grow up in that. So I'm really encouraged to see that and making sure that we do welcome people who we might not recognize or have to listen a little harder to. So I think those are good things. And the last thing I'll say is, in our profession, at least when I was going through the program, I always talked about private practice. And I would say private practice is great, but don't discount being a public servant because it has many long-lasting rewards, because what you're doing can be for multiple generations in the future. So think about that.
Just on the clock.
First and last. And everybody used to all the time. The thing that I feel about myself is I've always worked hard, and my husband even says, geez, Joyce, if you got your mindset, you're gonna work it out. I've learned through life that you're talking about the economy, graduating in 2011. My husband went through 3 or 4 jobs during that time, and I'm self-employed. We had health insurance through him. There's a lot of things that nobody tells you about when you get a job out of school. Signing up for the 401k, making sure you have insurance, put together a budget. I mean, these are all things that everybody should do, not just landscape architects. But if you have a plan, if you know where you're starting and where you'd like to end, there might be 5 or 6 different paths to that, but just do it and just plan for it. And just, if the first way doesn't work, try a second way. Don't give up. It's what we were trained to do as landscape architects. We put together a design and it may not hit a home run the first time, and it shouldn't. Boy, do I get scared when I present a plan and nobody has any changes. I just kind of go, crap, did they even really look at it? So, my husband and I had that happen to us. We had enough money to cover ourselves. And I know things are different. There's student loans. There's a lot of things that I didn't have to go through. I was very lucky. My parents paid for my education. And this whole thing with student loans right now, I feel bad. If I won the lottery, I would pay for all the kids. Seriously, I would, because I don't need the money. And that's the other thing. You hear a lot, and I'm sure it's not our profession, but you hear a lot about folks wondering how much they're gonna get paid. What are you gonna give me? Well, here's the thing, guys. When you graduate, they're giving you a job to get experience. Don't worry about how much you're gonna make. You're gonna get experience and it's gonna start your career. You might start out working for a landscape contractor and then have your own business, or you might start out working in private and end up working public. Just be prepared and enjoy what you do. Don't work so hard that you get sick. If you're working more hours than you should, maybe this is not the job for you. My very first job, I worked 70 hours a week. I thought I had to. Finally, one day I woke up and went, okay, I don't have to do this anymore. So anyway, I love landscape architecture. I love my job. I love what I do. I love working with people. There's so many opportunities, from working with Disney to the parks. I created a memory garden for a the dementia unit in Grand Rapids, and it was wonderful. I got to work with medical staff and residents' families, and I'll never forget, a woman told me that her mother would get upset because there were leaves on the sidewalk. And I thought, God, that's gonna be me, because I have that. Now, so I mean, it's that simple. I mean, what you guys were going over is amazing. But sometimes it's that simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. Make it what you want. If you love to illustrate landscapes, do that. Just learn it and do it. But if you like research, do that. I mean, you don't have to pigeonhole yourself, and just be open to change. Be open. Things are gonna change. The economy's gonna change. It's just the way it goes. Don't worry about it. Just have a plan.
Thank you all for your advice moving forward. With that, that's going to conclude our first panelist session. I'd like to thank all the panelists. We do have some gifts for you and for all the attendees for showing up. Thank you.